show some more books and stuff. We're going to start this video out with a tribute with some stuff I got in the mail to Winston Smith, the man who did the artwork for a lot of Dead Kennedys records. And just to point out, I haven't worn this t-shirt since I bought it in, like, I don't know, 95. And it's in pretty good condition. But yeah, I dug this out because of the Winston Smith stuff, and because Jello Biafra has a brand new song out and is threatening to put out a new album, and the brand new song is really good, and this thing still fits a little. It could be a 2XL, but anyway, yeah, I bought this directly from Alternative Tentacles so many years ago I can't even remember. But let's get into the book, and never mind the wardrobe. This little book is by Winston Smith. I bought it from him, and it's just a book of his artwork. And I haven't really opened it since I bought it. I bought this at the Jello Biafra 60th birthday concert at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, where Jello Biafra played almost the whole new album that, geez, that was like 3 years ago, and he hadn't put it out yet. Anyway, this is a bunch of Winston Smith artwork, and got my picture taken with him, and he autographed it for me. So if you see this thing, which I wish this was a hardback instead of a magazine type situation, but anyway, if you see this, it's definitely worth $4 or $5 to pick this up, unless you're buying it directly from him and then give him the $10 like I did, because he put it right in his wallet. And that's the best way to support an artist, is buy the art directly from them and watch them put the money in their pocket. It just makes paying $20 for a record album at a show, it makes it worth it. Okay. More Winston Smith. Alternative Tentacles website had a little package deal celebrating... let's look down. Well, I got this upside down. Celebrating, yeah, 40 years. Yeah, celebrating 40 years of Alternative Tentacles records. And they had this t-shirt. And this one is the 2XL. And they had this poster, which I'm going to frame. I'll probably stop by the store after work tomorrow and pick up a frame for this thing. But anyway, this poster and the t-shirt were $40. Here, I'll just put this back where I was keeping it. Okay, let's get into the books. Okay, this little book is called Satanic Bedtime Stories, and what this little thing is, it's bedtime stories that kind of tell the kid, like, you know, if somebody keeps messing with you and messing with you, you know, and it's just going on and on, you don't turn the other cheek. You know, you make, or you do something to make that kid stop it. And it says, you know, it tells little stories about emotional gratification instead of suppression. It's a very entertaining little book. There's no mention of a devil in this or anything like that. I don't know why they have that little symbol on the front. This is just a common sense book with little stories in it that probably 90% of Christians would agree with. You know, like punishing people that do bad things, stuff like that. anyway, it's a funny little book. And I bought it so long ago. It's made in Lexington, Kentucky. I don't know who put this out. It's written by Christy Stewart and Megan Hansen, and Good Morning Publishing from Manteca, California. So those women from Manteca put this out. It's really funny to read, and it's hard to disagree with because it's just like a common sense book. Like, you know, don't let somebody keep beating you up. Do something to make them stop it. Okay, next book is The Anointed, Boris. This is a book written by the Reverend Norb from Boris the Sprinkler, and it's just like a history of the band, Boris the Sprinkler. It's really, really good. It tells about all the releases, the story behind the releases, the story behind the songs, and if you don't have any Boris the Sprinkler records, the first one you're going to want to buy is Boris the Sprinkler Suck. Find that LP. There's not one bad song on it. It's just a perfect thing. Okay, here's another interesting book. What this thing is, is you would open this thing up to one of the biblical passages, and you'd put it on top of the television. That, I think, let me see what year this is from. This is old. Or is it even going to say? Well, 1979. This is from 1979. And what you would do is you'd set this thing up on top of the television so that while you're watching, let's say, Barney Miller or Three's Company, you were reading this Bible verse. And and then after you watch the program, if anything on the program went, you know, if anything was contradictory to this Bible verse, you'd flip it over and you would write your thoughts here. Or, you know, you'd ask the family to write their thoughts on how the show you watched didn't go along with this. And then you'd each write something here. And it was like a Bible lesson tool. So you'd put this on top of the TV. You'd watch, I don't think Sanford and Son was on in 1979, so whatever was on. And and then after the show was over, I guess the family members would take turns writing down what they felt the show did that was against the Bible. And this thing is called TV Screener, written by Ted Zabel, and I wouldn't part with it for anything. Okay, next book is Ken's, well, it's all true, Ken's Guide to the Bible. And what this thing is all the violence, sex, absurdity, and weirdness in the Bible. So it'll show a Bible passage, and then it will, well, actually it just shows Bible passages that are, you know, kind of crazy, but it categorizes them. That's the interesting thing about this book. It categorizes them and puts like a little picture next to the verse. And let me see if, oh, here we go. The easy reference icons in this thing. So it'll have little icons for weirdness, bunk, the big picture, read this again, divine wrath, holy distortion, blood and guts, Christian arrogance, gender bashing, family values. And this is by a guy named Ken Smith. and published by Blast Books. This is a very entertaining read. In fact, somehow I have 2 of these things. I should run a contest and let a viewer win one of the books. Okay, here's a book with Patti Smith on the cover, and this one is The Blank Generation, Revisited by the Early Days of Punk Rock. This is a photographic book. The first page I turn to is Joey Ramone, and it's just a bunch of photographs from the New York late 70s new music scene. There's, who is that? Richard Hell and Johnny Thunders. So if you're into the late 70s New York punk rock scene, new music scene, this thing is fairly cheap and it's fun to look at. Okay, here is another research record. In fact, these 2 research records go, I'm so used to doing records. These 2 research books go together. This is Research Pranks. And it's interviews with people who have done like pranks. You know, various types of pranks, from stopping traffic somewhere to mailing the superintendent of schools a letter saying that, you know, none of the kids are going to go to school today. Just various pranks, you know, from, who's in this? Timothy Leary. They interview him, Jello Biafra, Henry Rollins, John Cale, Harry Kipper, frank discussion from the Feeders. This is a very entertaining book. And I'm sorry to say, it's kind of, when you do find this thing, it's kind of expensive. I bought it, you can tell by the condition of it, when it first came out at a punk rock record store in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the name of the store was The Underground. But yeah, to find this thing nowadays, it's kind of expensive. I wish they would repress it with extra stuff at a reasonable price. I'm not against that at all. And here is Pranks Part 2 from Research Books. And the guy who's responsible for excuse me, these research books is a guy named Val something. Yeah, V. Val. And he's a old-time San Francisco punk rocker, and he puts out the best stuff. And this one, this issue of Pranks, is interviews with John Waters, Margaret Cho, Ron English, Joey Skaggs, and Suicide Club. And this one also, there's Al Jorgensen, is very entertaining to read about how these people did pranks on society, or maybe a small group of people, maybe a large group of people. Anyway, this one's a little easier to find, and it's a little more affordable. It's that first one that'll kill you. Okay, and in the last video I showed a research book that was called Incredibly Strange Music, and this is the volume 1 of it. And this one has interviews with people who have either made or collect incredibly strange music. This one has Deluxe Interior from the Cramps and Poison Ivy from the Cramps in it. That's the main reason to buy this. But it also has a guy, you know, from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I don't know where it is in here, but he's a like Christian fundamentalist preacher, but he, for some reason, happens to have the world's largest comedy record collection. And there's an interview with him in here, and it's a great interview to read. You just have all these records that he's talking about that are obscure, like obscure Mad Magazine records that were given to people who were like high up in the Mad Magazine fan club, you know, in the late 60s. Just strange things, like all of the Red Fox records, all of the really, I guess, adult comedy records from the 50s and 60s. This guy has them all, and he's a fundamentalist Christian preacher. But he's got a great record collection. I respect him for that. Here's a little advertisement or some guy talking about a record he has called Alfred Hitchcock, Music to be Murdered By. That'd be a fun record to seek out. So if you're looking for cool stuff to seek out that's kind of strange, these research incredibly strange music books are a great guide to things that none of your friends will either care about or know about. And that's just the sad truth behind this kind of thing. Okay, next book. This one's called Disco's Out, Murders In, the true story of Frank the Shank and LA's deadliest punk rock gang. And this is all about the early punk rock scene in Los Angeles, and kind of like the late like 1986, 1987 punk rock scene, as far as like gangs that listen to punk rock. It's an interesting read. Not a lot of pictures. And it's this guy who used to run around and go to punk rock shows, and with his little group of friends, which turned into a large group of friends, it's just about their misadventures, the things that they did that were, you know, messed up and that hurt people. So I would say that this book is depressing. And it, you know, if you didn't go to the shows like the Olympic Auditorium, Fender's Ballroom, where else? Mostly the Olympic Ballroom, but you know, like the Starwood, the Fleetwood, Whiskey A Go Go. This book will make you glad you didn't. Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. This book will make you glad that you didn't go to those shows. Amazingly enough, you're just going, you know what, I didn't know that 3 kids were stabbed to death, you know, behind the Cathay de Grande when, you know, the Mentors and TSOL played, or, you know, something like that. So if you're reminiscing about, you know, I live in Kansas, and geez, I wish I could have been in Los Angeles, you know, during that time and went to all those great shows that they had. This book will give you second thoughts on that idea, just because of the gangs and the horrible stuff they did. Okay, next book. Okay, this book I bought from Jim Rose himself when I went and saw the Jim Rose circus sideshow. It was an early 90s circus sideshow where they did weird stuff on stage, like a traveling circus troupe. This one is autographed by Jim Rose, and it's autographed by Mr. Lifto, which he just drew a little coat hanger. That's his autograph. And what this book is a book of like little tricks, deceptions that you can do in your daily life. Oh, geez, I haven't picked this thing up in years. How to walk on hot coals. How to form a human bridge. How to be a drunken acrobat and make money in a bar. How to change your temperature to get out of being drafted. And bend a nail with your hands. How to be a pickpocket. And that's what's in this book. And this thing was printed 1999. So this was I bought this thing at one of the latter Jim Rose shows. Anyway, if you can find this thing, I don't even know who prints it. I think he printed it himself. I don't think this thing has a publishing company. No, it doesn't. 3,000 print, limited edition, printed by Jim Rose. Pike Street, Seattle, Washington. So getting one of these, hopefully if you find one, they're not charging too much money. This is the funnest read ever. If you see this thing, don't pass it up. Pick it up. It's really fun to read. And it shows you how to change your identity if you need to, which is, I guess, a good thing. Okay, here's another Jim Rose book. This is A Freak Like Me. This one is hard to find. And what is in here? Oh, geez. What is this? Oh. Anyway, it's a newspaper clipping from the Los Angeles Times. Anyway, this is a book about Jim Rose, Circus Sideshow, the history of Jim Rose from beginning to not so much end, but near the end. This one also is hard to pick up. I mean, you can get it, but there's Matt the Tube Crowley, but somebody's going to want a lot of money for it, which is kind of too bad. It's very interesting. Written in big print for people who are blind or maybe lost their glasses. Anyway, this is a great little Jim Rose book. All right, we're nearing the end of this section. I got a ton more back there. This is Punk 77, an inside look at the San Francisco rock and roll scene 1977. It's a book by James Stark. It's on the Research Publishing, I guess, book label, and it shows on the back here, it shows an early Avengers gig. And if you look right there, that's Jello Biafra, probably before he was even in the Dead Kennedys. Like maybe the first show he did, or not did, but went to when he hit town from Denver. Anyway, this is a book that does interviews, and it describes what the scene was like in San Francisco in 1977. It's got pictures, and it's got the Sex Pistols gig, and a write-up on that. Crime, the almighty Screamers. So this book isn't very expensive, and it's very interesting. There's Debbie Harry, back when she was rocking. So anyway, yeah, this is a good book, and it won't cost you very much. This thing will cost you a lot. And you have to be an obsessive fan to buy this thing. Oh, and that hissing you hear, I'm making a pot roast. And that booming you hear, that's people lighting off fireworks. Okay, here we go. This book came, and I made a video of this book where I turned through every page of it. Just for the people who couldn't afford it but would really like to see it. I made a whole video of me just flipping through the pages of this book, because it is kind of expensive. This is a DVD of interviews with people who worked on Laurel and Hardy movies. Came with the book. And this is the almighty book. This book tells everything about Laurel and Hardy. And I keep it in this bag because I don't want anything to happen to it. I paid too much for it. Plus, it's like radically out of print by now. Oy, it weighs a ton. And here it is. The Laurel and Hardy, the magic behind the movies. And it's, let me see here, it's autographed to me by the guy that wrote it, or put it together, because he's the guy I bought it from. I got in contact with him, and since I bought it directly from him, he autographed it to me. And it's just a book describing everything. In fact, it kind of gets boring because it describes everything about the movies. It tells everything about the people who worked on the movies and everything about the actors, the directors, the producers, and all those people just aren't that interesting. It tells about Laurel and Hardy, and that's good, but it really covers everything. And since Laurel and Hardy were the most entertaining people, the fact that it goes off on all these other people who are not Laurel and Hardy, you kind of have to force yourself to pay attention to it. Yeah, that's the best way to describe this thing. If you run into it and you can get it for $100 or $200, you're getting a good deal. But, you know, especially if you get the one with the DVD and the autograph. Maybe the other ones just have an autograph, but not personally to you. Anyway, actually, I should tell you who wrote this thing and the publishing, just in case you want to look it up. But if you're a fan of Laurel and Hardy, you almost have to buy this. It's by Randy Skrvet. It's by Randy Skretovic. Randy Skretovic? I think that's how you say it. The publishing company is... It doesn't say. Let me find it. Oh, Bonaventure Press. Yeah, and this is 981 of 2,000. So I got one of the last ones. I'm glad I caught him before he sold them all. Anyway, this thing's great if you're a big Laurel and Hardy fan. If you're not, then this is the part of the video that is just going to make you say, what the hell is he talking about? Anyway, that's the end of the video. This bundle of t-shirt and poster is sold out. You know, they don't have any more. But if you were lucky to get this, you know, before they sold them all, I don't know how many of these he made. He autographed this. But this would look great on the living room wall, right next to the pinball machine. Which, I hope anybody watching this has a pinball machine in working condition right in their living room. That'd be a dream come true. I don't have that yet, but I'm working on it. All right, good night.